for us to talk to you and for you to raise questions with us about living and working in Dubai. It has its challenges, it has its moments, let's say, but it's also great. I've been here this is my 16th year, and to be honest, like a lot of people, I came here for 3 years. I thought I'd spend a bit of time in Dubai and move on. I've enjoyed working in this climate, working with the students who are here and the staff who come into Dubai so much. They've kept me here to the point I will not go back and work in the UK now. Right, it's really that simple in my mind. It's been a fabulous place to work. Never perfect, but always brilliant. There's always something happening here, and always something that's a challenge. And there might be very positive challenges, and there might be challenges where you go, oh no, not again. They're telling us we're going to close the school tomorrow. Why didn't they tell us in a week's time? But overall, you've got to look across the spectrum of activity in Dubai, and I've got to say to you now, you'll have a great time. So this session's basically, Chris will introduce himself now. Like every good head, I've got great people around me, and I wouldn't dare to come into you to talk about working in Dubai with the Ministry of Labour, the Ministry of Immigration, the Ministry of Education, and every other ministry you can have, but then this lady who looks after all those people for me. So the first thing I'll say to you is, living and working in Dubai, get great people around you, and you can't have Joyce. Right? She's mine. That's it. Well, she's a husband, but I get her during my day. And the real essence of it is build those great teams and make them very communicative teams as well. We made a decision 12 years ago now, Joyce? Patient lady, she's put up with me for 12 years. We made a decision to be open and upfront and communicative with all of the various agencies of government from day one. Even if things weren't going well for us, that openness and communication has borne dividends over time, because we found people who were willing to help us, because we'd go in and say, actually, you're asking us to do this, but we don't know how to do it. And then they'd sit on the other side of the desk and say, actually, we don't know how to do it either, but if we work together, we'll find a way. And that even came down to things like trying to get a school off the ground. There were various things where they came across and they would say, well, the law's above us all, we can't do anything. Or worse still, when people don't say anything. So the Emiratis are very, very polite people. They don't like to say no. So sometimes you're just met with silence. You don't get a yes. You just get a, okay. And that means you've got to work, and you've got to communicate, and you've got to keep talking. And once you do that, and once you get through that moment where you've got to understand they are trying to help to the best of their ability, but the systems may change around them as quickly as they may change around us. So there are times we need to work together very much as a team with the authorities to be successful. My experience in this is I've never come across an individual in government here who didn't want it. Sorry, one day he did. Once I have in 16 years, where everybody wants to help. And one day we did have a very rude awakening, let's say, where somebody didn't want to help, and that was it. It was just bam, the door was shut. So, it's okay. How do you want to play? Can I introduce Chris?
Yeah, I'll say a few words.
Chris is always good for a word or two. And there are a few ringers in the room. Hi, Andy, who's running through the door now. Darryl, who's sitting at the back. Tell people not to come in now. Who again are hugely experienced, and David. I don't know why they're sneaking in. Maybe you're marking our presentation.
And Lee.
Yeah. But we can put questions out to them as well if we need to break down. But think on the basis of there's no such thing as a daft question here, right? There's nobody looking beyond the room. There's nobody from KSDA here. I'm not going to tell on you if you don't tell on me, right?
There's a camera here, though, Rob. Can I just?
It's just pretend.
It's pretend, okay.
Yeah. We make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So the cameraman's under threat here. So your questions, please. Should we introduce ourselves a little bit? Do you all know Rob? Sorry. Yeah.
By definition, we can't.
By definition, you can't.
Because if we knew, we can't.
Ah. Okay. So, Robert, do you want to say something about yourself? Modestly, obviously.
I haven't been called Robert since my mother passed away. I'm Rob Stock. I'm director of the Jest Schools. I've been here for 16 years. I think I've got the best job in the world, but Chris will say he's got the best job in the world. It depends where you are. What I really enjoy about Dubai is the energy of the place. Okay. the trust we're given, the respect we're given by the community as leaders of schools. That also brings the pressure because there's high expectation on us to perform for every child in our care. But that's what we're in the job for. We are people as a profession who give, and I'm happy to give for one more year. I've just announced I'm going to retire at the end of this year, so this is my last year in Dubai. And I asked for this session to happen. So you as new heads had a forum, you got to meet each other and realise other people are in exactly the same situation. But most of all to create a forum and connection with Dubai, so you have people you can go and ask questions to. And get over the thing that you're on your own. There are great people working in schools in Dubai who will offer you an open door. We've talked for many years in Dubai about the competition in the private sector. What works, absolutely smashed that apart. There is not competition. My own school is massively competitive with Des. Where's he gone? Has Andy actually run away?
I think he's going to be a doorman.
Good on him. But those relationships have changed over time. We're very much developing a collaborative, collegiate society of educators in Dubai. At this level, what works is for teachers through to leaders, and we're currently prompting Dr. Abdullah to run leadership conferences twice a year as well, where heads and assistant heads actually come together, actually go to workshops, actually present to one another in the same way that we've seen teachers present today. We ran one conference last year. For the first time in Dubai, the heads got together. We had 101 heads in the same room together. And that was the first of many achievements, because we want to build on that. And of course, you're the energy of the future. You're going to be a massive part of that. And when I step out of the way, I want you to step in and take that forward. That's enough about me.
It's enough about Rob. Well, Rob didn't say because he's very modest. By the way, my name's Chris McDermott. I'm not so modest as Rob, so I'm probably going to talk about myself for half an hour. Is that okay, Rob? A quick half an hour. The people there looking panic-stricken at the back, those who don't know me. Rob what he hasn't told you is that he's been, is it executive principal? What's your title, Rob, of the Jess schools? Director, okay. A very successful schools, Jess, Jumeirah English-speaking schools in Arabian Ranches and in Jumeirah, and they have achieved an outstanding judgment. So Rob is speaking as the voice of experience, and he's, as he said, been here 16 years. Now, I'm not quite sure why I'm standing here, other than the fact that I must have muscled my way to the front, elbowed my way to the front at some stage, because I've only been here 3 years. So there are people sitting out there who've been here longer than I have, who probably should be sitting where I'm sitting. For the first 3 years I was here, I was the principal of Jumeirah Primary School. Kate McKeever there is now the new principal of Jumeirah Primary School, and we were lucky enough to receive outstanding judgments for those 3 years. But one of the things I should say, and if I don't say it later on, I'll say it now, that was built on the basis of all the hard work done by many people before I ever got to the school. And I think that's one of the things that will come through today. I'm now the principal of GEMS International School on the El Kale Road, and I know it will take us a long time to get the school to the standard that the school I've just left was at. And that's a natural process. So one of the things I'm always very keen to say is, you come to these talks and I feel very bad, and I'm sure Rob is the same, if it sounds as though somebody's standing up saying, oh, well, my school's just got outstanding, can I just patronise you all for a few moments and then go away and my ego's been well burnished and you feel a little bit worse. If we're doing something like that, we're not doing a very good job. Because I know in the school I'm at the moment, as I've said, it will take me a while, it will take us a while to get to the point that Jumeirah Primary School is at, and it will be the same for all of you. Some of you will be principals and head teachers of outstanding schools, others of schools that are not outstanding. But every single person in this room, we know that, aspires to be the principal of an outstanding school. And I'm totally in agreement with Rob, and we've known each other a little while, even though I'm GEMS and you're non-GEMS, as it were. But that doesn't matter, because we do the same job and we work for different companies. It doesn't matter, because I think by sharing it makes you a bigger and a better person. And also by sharing, and research has shown this, by sharing and helping others, you yourself grow. You learn by putting your hand out, stretching your hand out to others and wanting to help them. And they also help you. It's never, ever a one-way process. So my little starter for today, and I'm going to sit down in a moment and I guess we'll field your questions, is that it shouldn't just be Rob and I fielding questions, because I know out there are people who know a lot more than I do about being a principal, and certainly a lot more about particular aspects of being a principal in Dubai. So I guess, Rob, our style is people will ask questions and we'll try and answer some of the questions, but we'll also throw the opportunity out to the audience to answer them. And if you feel that we are, or particularly me, I wouldn't speak for Rob, is waffling away a little bit at the front here and you think, hey, I could give a better answer than that, please jump in, because it's about sharing and collaborating and helping one another. Okay, Rob. You got a question?
Yes, good man.
Do you want to, so we just do the normal thing where people give their name and then which school they're from, and we'll do it that way.
My name is Yasser Sakaji, Assistant General Director at Al-Ittihad School. My question is, you left a school with outstanding, now with a school with good. What do you think the first step you will do, and what's your procedure for the next 3 years to reach the outstanding?
Gosh, right. Where are you going now, Rob? Oh, God. Okay, right. Well, schools are about lots of things. They're about spirit, they're about building teams, they're about collaboration, they're about setting the ethos. But underneath all of that, you have to have systems. Now, my school has been in existence for a year. It's been in its own building just for 2 terms, so I'm right at the beginning. And what we're doing, I'll give you an example. Next week on the CPD that we're doing, we're supposed to be looking at assessment. I looked at the school and I decided some of the teachers, because many of the teachers I've got in my school are really at the start of their career, and they're struggling with some of what we might call the basics, for want of a better term. So I said, fine, we've got that in the plan, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something different. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at behavior management. Okay, so what we're building systems, it's about systems, behavior management systems that are shared throughout the school that are built on a particular ethos. Now for me, I like to consider myself to be a very honest person. With any situation, you're never, ever, ever going to improve if you have a culture of dishonesty in your school. You know, if you say to me, hey Chris, what are you like at assessment? You know, are you any good at objective tracker? Yeah, man, I'm really cool, I'm fantastic, you know, no problem. Then you ask me a question, I can't answer the question, you think, well, that guy McDermott's a bit of an idiot, he tells lies, etc., etc. So we won't trust anything he says from now on. So I say to my teachers, on the subject of behavior management, we will support you, we are putting systems in place, so that's what I'm talking about now, but we're also encouraging you to be honest, because it's okay to admit that you don't know something. That's okay. There's no problem with that. Now, there's a problem for me with people who can't be bothered. There's a problem with people who aren't motivated. There's a problem for me with people who don't care. But if you give me the person who cares but who just doesn't know, who wants to know, who wants to get better, I'm on their side. And not only am I on their side, the whole of my leadership team and the staff in my school are on their side. So for me, it's about putting in place those systems. I mean, I'll give you an example of something that I did last week. I realized people were coming into my school and everybody pretty much on the front desk, the PRE is new, the people on the front desk are new. So the parents are coming up and asking questions about transport or about medical issues or about after-school activities or whatever. So I sat down with that team for half an hour and I said, right guys, we're going to have a look at where these parents can go to in our school, how they're going to access that information. Are you going to give them that information? Are you going to give them a phone number, an email? Are we going to have a notice board when you walk into the entrance? How are we going to do that? And we sat down as a team and we put in place a system. So now when parents come into the school, it's much easier for the people on the front desk to help them. So you have to have an ethos, and that's your spirit, that's your passion, that's your your moral integrity, your moral drive, if you like. But sitting underneath that, you have to have your systems, because the other thing's very fluffy, and politicians love standing up, don't they, and speaking to people and talking about fluffy things. I believe in motherhood and apple pie. I believe in goodness. I'm against badness. Well, that's all very wonderful and lovely. But underneath that, you have to have your rigorous system. So for me, starting out pretty much in a school, that's what I'm learning to do, or that's what I'm hoping to get my staff to do. And I'm borrowing Kate sitting over there, and she will know that I've been back to her school that used to be my school, and I've said, Kate, can my member of staff speak to the member of staff in your school? Do you mind if I borrow this system that we used to use at JPS? Those sorts of things. And Kate's very generous, and she says, no problem, Chris. And it might be that Kate, and I don't know if this would ever happen, and her staff would come over to my school and maybe pick one or two things up from my school. But in the end, as I said at the beginning, you're a much bigger person if you share. And if you don't share, I'm very doubtful of you as a person, and doubtful, I'm going to be honest with you, of you as a leader, because that's the ethos you set for your school, so you must believe it in your heart. So that's a rather long answer there, Rob.
No, I'll
It'll be edited.
Practical as
Have you got an editing facility on that, sir? No. Oh dear.
I think the question would take about a day to answer. in all honesty. Yeah, because it's a big issue, you know. First off, you've got to get to know your school and understand its potential and capability. And then you've got to build upon what's already there. Lots of people make a mistake in their first headship or early days of headship about trying to create something as if nothing had existed beforehand. So be wise about what you do. But first of all, understand your school. The next thing is, what is your vision for the school? You need to articulate that to staff. You need to understand it yourself. And there's a precision about putting this vision together, which will take you 3 or 4 months. Don't think, you know, I'll go away for 2 days and write a vision statement. Because it has to hone in on the essential elements which makes your school different. I mean, we're all heads, we're all running schools which are similar but different. You know, we couldn't step into each other's shoes, any one of us. So your unique vision statement for your school. And then the mission part, about in 3 or 4 years' time, where is my school going to be? What will it look like? What difference will I have made? So vision through your mission, and then you've got a series of milestones along the way. So what are your success indicators along the way? What will you see happening that you understand, you know for sure, and it's got to be evidence-based, that you're working towards this mission statement. This is a 3-hour presentation, you know, moving from vision through the mission. So be aware of that process. One statement I will say to you, and this one I want you to remember: run a happy school. And that's you being happy, your parents being happy, your staff being happy, and most importantly, your students being happy. DSIB is not the most important thing in the world. The happiness of your students is. And most families will forgive lots of things of us as long as their kids are happy and being challenged in the classroom. So never lose sight of why we're truly in our jobs. Happy kids will learn. Happy kids will thrive. So keep that as a clear focus. Your success will come on the back of that. So think about the school, you know, as a living, breathing entity. Its well-being is important. I had an inspection feedback about 3 years ago now, and the chief inspector sat with me prior to going in and meeting with the board, and he just said, "Rob, you've got a happy school." I said, "Thanks very much, I don't want to hear any more." Because in him saying that, I knew everything else was right. And that's what I want at the end of the day. I want to be head of a happy school, where the kids love coming and hate leaving, where the parents are happy to send them and happy to receive them back, but where the parents work with us because they're engaged with the school, and that only comes through happiness. Sounds cool, but it really is the essence of everything we do. If kids aren't happy, they can't learn. If they're not learning, we're unsuccessful. Okay, maybe I'll, you know, if we need a session on, you know, how to phrase a vision statement and move towards a mission statement, we can do that in one of the leadership sessions. You just need to ask. Feel as though you have a voice. So if there are sessions you want, how to move from vision to mission, we'll come along, we'll do that with you. Great question. I hope that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Pradeep Kumar from the Indian High School, Dubai.
Hi.
So just we've talked about happiness. And my question is, what are the specific strategies you have adopted for the last 3 years to bring in that concept of happiness in your school, particularly connected to the teaching staff?
Should I start with that?
I can start with this because I've been very deliberate about this, and I'm happy to either come to your school and talk about it or share the information I have. Last year I was afforded the privilege of being asked to write a book on leadership, which I was embarrassed about and humbled by, I've got to be honest, and went through the process of writing, and the very last chapter I wrote was one on well-being, and it was inspired by Vic Marks, who did the happiness survey, the International Happiness Survey, where the Kingdom of Bhutan, bless them, came out first.
I was working there.
Yeah, yeah. So I wrote this chapter, and it was chapter 16 in the book, and I kept reading it. I moved it up to 12, to 10, to chapter 8, and I finished up with chapter 5 when I sent it off to the publishers. I really regret not making it chapter 1, because if you haven't got well-being, you're absolutely going nowhere. How have I cultured it in the school? Numerous ways. One is get the message out there. Your happiness, your well-being is important. Your pride in your school is an important energizer. Your pride in your work, the value you give to yourself as an educator is massively important. These are energizers. So in talking about well-being and happiness, we're really talking about things which energize us. So, if somebody works hard, they deserve praise, they deserve recognition, they deserve, a head walking past and saying, that's really excellent, I'm really pleased with what you're doing. Come and talk to me about it. But, and the message I've given to my heads is, go out there, get out of your offices and get out and find the great things that are happening in your school. Recognise and reward. So there's I wouldn't say a barrage, but there's a filtering of messages going out, week on week about doing this. Go out, find the good things. You don't, the worst thing about our jobs, you could get stuck behind a desk. And those 4 walls are a barrier to you noticing what's going on in your schools anyway. Those 4 walls are a barrier to people coming in to talk to you as a human being sometimes. And your humanity, your expertise is important out there. So the only way you get it out there is to get yourself out there. So get out and about your school, do walks. And, there's bits of advice we can give you about don't fall into the pitfalls of getting into conversations with staff. And, a little piece of advice, don't say yes to any member of staff when you're on a walkabout. That's when they get you. And that's where you might make a promise that you can't fulfill. So avoid saying yes when you're out there. But get out there and find the good things. If your job's coming in and it all seems far too busy and getting on top of you, spend a day, go and track one of your students and see the great things that are happening in your school. Just say it pretend you're ill. I'm not here, I'm ill, don't ring me. And just spend a day, track your students and see the great experience you provide for them. So the positive stuff you do can get lost sometimes, and keep it in focus. Notice the great things in your school. I suppose over 3 years the best thing, be proactive. Don't be reactive to the bad stuff. Make the good stuff important.
Can I just follow up from that? Gosh, you're talking to the person here who did his MBA dissertation in leadership and emotional intelligence, so I suppose I could talk for a long time about this as an issue, but I agree, and we haven't rehearsed this, I agree 100% with Rob. It's so important to get people feeling happy. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you haven't got that sorted out, then people are going to be struggling with everything that they do. I'll just give you a couple of thoughts. One is, I was listening to Lord Adonis speak a couple of years ago, and he talked about micromanaging the important things. Now, I'll give you another practical example from my school. So I've got a whole bunch of teachers over, mainly from North America, mainly from Canada. And one of them was having difficulties in his apartment. He's at the bottom of an apartment block, and people are doing that awful thing of throwing down cigarette butts, that sort of thing, and even nappies, diapers, as he called them, etc., etc. So the guy's really struggling. So he came in to see me. He said, "Hey, Chris, this is the situation. I'm really, really fed up. You know, my mum and dad," he's about 30, "my mum and dad are saying, come back to America. You know, we want you back. This Dubai place is terrible," etc., etc. So I said to him, "Dan, if I can get over to you, I'll get over to you and help you." And then the meeting was over, and I left it. And I reflected on it. And we're all too busy, aren't we, to go and visit Dan's apartment. Way too busy. I can't be visiting Dan's apartment. I've got big strategic plans to write with fluffy words to impress people like the KHDA. Can't be going visiting Dan. Then I thought, hold on a minute. If I visit him, that might, in inverted commas, save him, because he's going to go and get on a plane. He's feeling really down. And also, if I go and visit Dan, then word will get out amongst the other teachers who've just come over from North America as well that I bothered to do it. So I got in one of the school buses, which has this wonderful regulated speed. I think we were going about 10 miles an hour. Anyway, we eventually got to Dan's apartment after many hours. And I visited that, and I thought, well, while I'm here, this was in Silicon Oasis, I'll go and visit the other apartments as well. So I did. And I went round and visited all my teachers. And what happened was, of course, that the morale of the teachers, it cost me probably 4 hours of my time altogether, but the morale of the teachers went up. Dan's still in my school. And Dan is now positively vocal about the leadership and management of our school. It's just a small thing, but it reflects on what Rob said. It is so important to get those things right. Yeah. Could talk a lot about happiness, but...
Question from an old hand, but from a new hand. Chris, you said that you've only just been here 3 years now. And a lot of people in this room are new to Dubai, new to headship in Dubai. Can you remember, for us, the sort of memory span, what were those 2 or 3 key things that you found were so challenging and so different when you arrived here as a school leader? And what did you do to kind of overcome them or get around them to move the school forward and yourself forward in the situation?
Gosh, I think for me, doing the job that I do, it was the balance between being a principal and a CEO. And I don't know how many of you here are principals/CEOs, are you? Can we just have a little... Are you kind of business managers as well as principals? Some people nodding. Okay. So I spent most of my headship in London. So I was used to not being unpleasant, but being quite robust with particular parents when one needs to be robust. Do you know what I mean? The parent. I don't know about you. Has anybody here ever met a parent who said, "I think this school overrates my child's abilities. They really are not quite that bright, you know." Well, I'll be very pleased if you've met somebody like that. I've never met anybody like that. However, I've met the opposite, and you will have all met the opposite as well. My child is a genius, but Mr. McDermott, you haven't realized it yet because you're a bit slow on the uptake. Okay. So this was right near the beginning, and I was principal at JPS, hadn't been in the principal seat very long. And a parent came in, and he saw my door closed. So not having met me, he made the assumption that that indicated a particular culture for our school. It's a closed door policy, which it isn't. And then he spoke to my PA and decided that I was unavailable and went to speak to somebody else. My PA came to see me, and I thought, right, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell this guy what's what. So I did it in a very polite way, very nice way, as you would expect, very professional way. But he didn't particularly like this. And word got back to me that he hadn't liked it. And what I had to then do was to reflect on my position as principal. So I think in summary what I'm saying is I have to remember that the work I'm doing is slightly, only slightly, not massively, but slightly different from the work I was doing in London as a state school head teacher, because that guy is paying fees and expects a certain attitude from me. And I reflected that although I hadn't in any way been rude, I'd been a little too assertive, if you like. I hadn't listened enough. That's the first thing. Second thing, and it's a very obvious thing to say, it's the whole culture in Dubai. I mean, I come from Britain, as you can tell from my accent, so I'm having to understand and be respectful to the local culture. Now, I think Dubai, if you're going to live in the Middle East as a Western person, Dubai is probably as good a place as any. However, sitting underneath that is a certain culture, and I must be respectful of that. And I'm going to reflect on what Rob said earlier on about people here wanting to help you. You know, when I have my interactions with the KHDA, which I do, and they're all very positive, I must remember that I am principal of a school and that they are running an education system, and I must not be disrespectful to them or disrespectful to the way they expect things to be done. And one of the two of the slight difficulties I've had relate to, for example, children doing Arabic A or Arabic B. So you will be in this situation in your schools, you're all teaching Arabic. So at JPS I had children who had Arab passports and they were supposed to be doing Arabic A, but Mr. McDermott decided maybe because they didn't really speak Arabic, they could do Arabic B. And that produced a little bit of friction. So what I did was, in the end, I thought, well, I have to address this issue. It's not right for me to be disrespectful. So we did our best to move those children into Arabic A and to give them some kind of support. That would be the second thing. And I think the third thing for me is, as somebody who comes from a Western liberal culture, so from London, where we're all completely equal, and it would be heinous to think of certain people being on international contracts, for example, and other people being on local contracts. That is a concept that we couldn't grapple with properly. I got used to all that side of things, which is the HR side, etc., and learning to understand that and how it happens. So it's the customer focus, it's the HR bit that really, I think, were the main things when I first came out here. Rob?
Although it's a long while for me, it's still fresh. It's the complexity. We're not just talking about Dubai, it's the UAE. And there are 7 states, and we've got one educational organisation running Abu Dhabi, ADEC, has complete autonomy in ADEC, and then we've got the other 5 northern Emirates who don't seem to have anybody looking after them except the MOE. And then you have Dubai, where there's limited control for KHDA. So the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, you know, they themselves wear many hats, and DSIB is just one part of KHDA. Now that's only one part of the complexity, because they're the various ministries, which logic would tell me will work in pretty much a similar way. They will communicate, they'll understand the differences about people working with the Ministry of Immigration, with the Ministry of Labour, and there's some interface between them. And there isn't. They tend to work in their own way, and a problem can't be solved by going from one ministry to another. So complexity at the moment, the not-for-profit schools, there's a new organisation called the Community Development Authority, which Sheikh Mohammed has determined will run not-for-profit organisations in Dubai. So I've got a complex thing at the moment where my trade licence comes from the Department for Economic Development. It costs me an absolute fortune. And I can now get this trade licence from the Community Development Authority, but they don't agree. So in the middle, it's us being stretched and pulled and say, but you've been with the Department for Economic Development for 40 years, why would you want to change? Because I don't want to pay you all this money. And why would you want to go to this new organisation which Sheikh Mohammed has said is dedicated to not-for-profit schools? So there's always a challenge, and there's always a complexity about Dubai. And that's why I brought Joyce along, because I thought there were questions about dealing with the ministries, which is the most difficult part of our jobs. I think running the school we're good at, we're acknowledged as being very good at our jobs, that's why we're here. It's been transplanted and dropped into Dubai, which brings that additional complexity. So instead of having a cushioning effect which a local authority might have, or organisations such as HMC, you're left on your own to face the vagaries of the various ministries. And that will cause problems. You know, I've often felt we needed a helpline, you know, somebody we could each go to who wasn't representing the ministries but was offering advice to us to help us on our way through. And 15 years on, I still remember how on earth am I going to get these people on side with us, because I wanted to work with us. And they didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them at the time. And that's why I decided to go and walk through the doors and go and talk to them. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, sorry, only to add on to something that Chris suggested. Again, experience of this is about relationships. Cultivate the relationships with people like your HR team, your admin staff, your finance teams, because they might have practices which are different to your group's experience, but they're vital to the success of the school. You have that efficient working relationship with them. I don't know if you find that as a learning curve.
Absolutely, and one of the things I did earlier on, because I think it's interesting that I've, as I say, only been here 3 years, and the fact that I'm like some kind of charlatan standing at the front here would tell you that if I've not done anything else, what I've done is I've reached out. I mean, GEMS, we know GEMS, it's the biggest provider of education within Dubai, but I haven't decided, right, there's a wall between me as a GEMS principal and the other schools. I thought, no, I am going to be, yes, part of GEMS and a very loyal part of GEMS, but I'm also going to be reaching out to schools outside GEMS. So one of the things I did was I networked with people at the KHDA. I came to things like this. I got to know people. I got to know people like the wonderful Joanne, Shamma, you will know these people, and other such people. I got to know them and developed a good working relationship with them. So I was able to pick up the phone if I was stuck, and I passed this information on to Kate as well, because going back to our idea of sharing, I developed working relationships with those people so I could pick up the phone when I was stuck. And I don't think I've ever just phoned up the KHDA switchboard and said, this is my problem, can I speak to someone? I've never done that. I've always had somebody at the end of a line on a mobile phone. I've been able to speak to them. And for me, standing here now, what I'm trying to do, probably floundering, but what I'm trying to do is to give back to KHDA and to give back to them because they've helped me. And it's that idea of reciprocity. I'll just say this one last thing. There was, and I'll get the figures wrong here, but it's very interesting about the way we are as human beings. Somebody, I think it was back in England, sent out Christmas cards to 100 people that he didn't know, but he put his name and address on the back of the card, okay? So he sent them out to people he doesn't know, Happy Christmas, love Bill. So really, Bill shouldn't get any cards back, should he? That would be absolutely ridiculous because these people don't know Bill Jenkins. They never heard of Bill Jenkins. Well, Bill Jenkins actually got quite a lot of cards back. I can't remember how many, but quite a significant proportion. And that's because as human beings, we are naturally, we behave reciprocally. So if somebody behaves well to us, somebody helps us, we help them and vice versa. And for me, it's about trying to develop those relationships both at an organizational level, but also at a personal level, at an individual level, between me and the people in my school and the KHDA and fellow principals as well. And we all gain. Okay.
Andy Wood, Greenfield School, new to Dubai, new to the Middle East. My question is about school ethos and school culture, and that's an international school. You were talking about the Middle Eastern culture. I have in my school 86 different nationalities, probably 50 different home languages, and my teachers probably come from 30 or 4 different countries. And naturally, where we come from is how we grew up, and therefore that is normal and right and the correct way to be educated. And so I have a staff room from people from Singapore to South Africa, Norway to New Zealand, all over the place. And I walk down the corridors, I'm a South African, I expect the schoolboys to have short haircuts and to say, "Morning, sir," and look you in the eye. Well, I've got Bollywood stars and beards, and they all stroll around looking really relaxed and casual. How do you define...
These are the staff of the kids.
How do you define the ethos of an international school in the Middle East, which is by definition cosmopolitan? I'm a great believer that if the little things, if you take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves. And getting the fundamentals right, creating a sense of self-respect and pride. And yeah, just some advice in terms of school culture.
Think of your school as a Dubai school. It's very interesting. Jess was set up in the 1970s, very, very British. I think when I arrived, 96% of the kids carried British passports. One of the cultural changes I've sort of pushed in the school is one of internationalism. So, you know, our makeup in the staff room now would be very similar to yours, and the same with the students. And I've been, I wouldn't say confronted, but they weren't very happy with me. I had guests come out to KSDA from Ofsted and the DFE in England, and they were trying to say, Jess is a fantastic example of a British school succeeding overseas. And I said, we're not British. We don't have a British branch, we don't have this, we're a Dubai school. And we represent multicultural Dubai, and we're proud of it. So accept where we are. Dubai is a unique paradigm. We are privileged to be in, I think, one of the most successful multicultural nations on the planet. And that Dubai has welcomed us all. And look at the diversity in this room. It's great. And you know, how much can we learn from each other? You know, how much knowledge about various systems are just enshrined within this room alone here. So Dubai is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to, one, embrace what is here. So I would just say accept it as a Dubai school.
Okay.
Jess has made that move, and you know, we used to select on a passport basis. Shame on us.
Yeah.
We're through that.
I mean, I would echo what Rob said, and it's like we'd rehearsed this as a kind of double act.
But we did.
We did, yeah. We did a whole of last night. Do you know what? He was down there with me round at my place. We were there drinking lots of coffee. How many hours did it take us, Rob?
I can't remember coffee.
You can't remember coffee. It was something else. Okay, we won't talk about that in this part of the world. Okay, for me, it's about clarity sometimes, because and I go back to what I said earlier on. We can talk about the general stuff. We all believe in internationalism, and I agree 100% with Rob, and that was very much my view when I was at Jumeirah Primary School. But sitting underneath that, and I go back to the answer I gave at the beginning, you've got to be clear in terms of the detail and the systems. So I know I've had parents saying to me, I'll give you an example, right, I don't want children to be able to bring pork to school in their packed lunch. So how are you going to deal with that? Because we talk fluffily about internationalism. How are you going to deal with that? I've got to have a very clear idea. My school's got to have a very clear idea. And what I said on that one was that if there are children with bringing pork in, I'm not saying this is the right answer. I'm saying it's my answer because I have to have clarity beneath the fluffiness. I said, it's okay for children to bring pork to school, but they must sit in a different part of the room. So there is absolutely no chance of children who are Muslim, for example, getting themselves involved in anything like that. And I think for me that kind of felt like the right answer. I'll give you another example. On the other side, one parent, only one parent came to see me, a Muslim parent, and she said, Chris, you know, the children are getting changed together in year 3 for PE, the boys and the girls, you know, is that okay? And I thought, do you know what? I think in order to pay proper respect to the local culture, that isn't okay. So on that particular example, I said, fine, what we're going to do now is we're going to have these girls and boys getting changed separately. There are a bunch of other examples I can use, but I think it is, the difficulty always comes in your clarity in terms of individual rules. And I will, if I'm not sure, I'll give you another example. There's a gentleman there sitting in the Kandura. So we came along, it was National Day at JPS. So I thought, what are we going to do about that? And I thought, well, the guys can wear kanduras, the women can wear abayas if they want to, etc., etc. Member of staff said, this isn't right, this is disrespectful to the local culture. But what he hadn't realized is that I had already checked out with local people as to whether or not that was disrespectful or respectful. And they told me it was completely respectful. So what I'm saying again is, it's in terms of looking at those detailed examples and in terms of thinking oneself, reflecting, talking to one's leadership team, but also stepping outside the leadership team and talking to people in other schools or talking to people who are local and who I should be listening to. So that would be my answer to that. Agreed 100% with the internationalism, and JPS moved as well from being very much a British school to being a more international school, but sitting underneath that, get the detailed answers right.
That was good, Chris.
Was that okay?
You were better than you were last night.
Was I? But that was better than I was, because I rehearsed that last night, but I kept stumbling. I was looking in the mirror too much, wasn't I? Never a good thing. Okay.
Yeah, please.
I'm the vice principal of Tawhid Iranian schools. As we offer our national curriculum, I don't know, is there anyone who offer the national curriculum? In England, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite popular in Dubai. But like French or Japanese or Russian, we might have some problem because DSIB, they want us to have a kind of benchmark test. And they compare the students with a standard international benchmark test. We have our national benchmark tests, and the students are quite good and high level in that. But unfortunately, it's not acceptable. So, is there any way or any person have this problem?
Yeah, well, yes, they must, is the answer to that, because it's not a one-shoe-fits-all approach. Darryl?
Well, my name is Darryl Blount, and I was the principal of James Gordon Academy for 14 years. I moved up a bit. I'm not the principal anymore. We are an Indian curriculum school, and we said the same thing to the inspectors when they came to us 6 years ago, that we should be benchmarked against Indian standards. And they were very clear we are an international school, and therefore our students have to benchmark against international standards. So what we did as a school was very simple. We moved across and we learned to share best practices and learn from best practices across Dubai. And I am so happy to see so many people here from different schools and different curriculums. And that's what we need to do, because when we did that, we moved from good to outstanding. So we are now an outstanding school for the last 3 years.
Yeah, but
And
sorry. Our major problem is that the medium instruction in our school is Persian, not English. So this is the main problem. For Indian, I think that the medium instruction language is English.
yes.
This is the problem. So I think that a little bit should be considered. There are quite enough schools, different national curriculum.
Have you gone back to KHD to ask?
Mm-hmm.
Should we benchmark?
Have you gone back to KHD to
Yeah,
ask?
we have written
Because
a letter.
if they are insisting, they will show you a way forward.
Mm.
I would also talk to the French school, because they have a fixed national curriculum they deliver in French. Let's be clear here. We have a number of international benchmarks as a school, not only DSIB, and we're probably all subject to constitutions, which will give us a framework in which we phrase the school on a daily basis. That constitution is sacrosanct. That's why, and when your parents are coming to your school to receive a particular type of education, your first loyalty is to them. It always has to be. In terms of persuading DSIB to give you the acknowledgement you deserve, which I think is the question behind the question, is go and discuss and take the issue with them. And there may be 4 or 5 similar schools. The Russian school will instruct in Russian. Japanese has a very, very different
Then
system.
how do we benchmark ourselves against Arabic, which we do? We have the American framework.
Yeah.
So we benchmark ourselves against Arabic with international standards as well. So whether it's Persian or Arabic or Hindi or English or French, we have to benchmark internationally for every subject.
Going back to what we said, open a dialogue with them. You'll find them receptive.
I think open a dialogue and going back to what we were saying earlier on, and I'm not here to advocate insurrection.
Yes, you are.
I am. I'm here to advocate insurrection, okay, and revolution. But I think, as Rob was saying, if I was in your position, I'd be checking out all the schools in Dubai that didn't use English as their medium. I'd be contacting those principals and I was saying, hey guys, we're not going to be unpleasant or disrespectful. I go back to what we said earlier on. It's very, very important to be respectful. But we've got a common cause here in that we're finding it more difficult. Do you think it would be possible for us to get together and have a civilized meeting with the people from the KHDA and talk about the issue that we have in common? Because if it's one voice, particularly if you go back to my analogy earlier on of metaphorically just ringing the switchboard, one voice ringing an anonymous recipient is not going to get very far. If you get a group of people together, if you can fix an appointment with another group of known people at the other end, you stand more chance of being successful, particularly if right is on your side. And I'm sure that it is. And so, you know, good luck to you.
I'm the headmistress who won the French this year, and so we are benchmarked against international standards as well, even though we have the French curriculum. So the KHDA keeps on having us improving ourselves, but against international standards. So
Okay, let's make a deal.
and we do teach in French.
Yeah.
We have English,
Well-
Arabic, of course.
We'll raise this at a high level as we can within KCA on your behalf, and if you push from your side, we'll see where we get to.
Yeah.
Some subjects can be already benchmarked, can be done easily. In some subjects only she has problem.
Okay. It's 3 o'clock, by the way. What time are we supposed to be finishing?
I think we're finished.
We're finished.
Are there any burning questions that anyone hasn't had a chance to ask? Would you feel this would be worth repeating as an exercise in 3 months' time, 2 months' time?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I think Darryl can host the next one, since you turned up to watch this one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah,
Good
thank
luck
you
with
very
the
much
job,
for your
all of you.
time and good luck all of you. Thank you.